How are you guys doing today? Hopefully great. As you guys know, Ember is getting a rework. Normally I would actually hold off on this type of video, but because I've already put in a good amount of time, hashtag fashion frame, might as well finish it. Once the Helium and reworks get released, do expect a video on it, but for this video I'll be skimming through all of her abilities. With her first ability, one being Fireball, at the time of making this video, it is going to be a hold to cast for more damage. This is before the rework, so any changes you experience later, chances are you're experiencing the rework itself. Now, there will be more changes to it, but I do not want to talk about too much. However, when it comes to some general changes, basically Ember is going to be receiving a much better energy economy, and of course, her first ability that called Fireball, instead of it being a hold to cast, we're actually going to be able to just tap it once with the maximum amount of damage. Her second ability is called Immolation, and basically this allows you to cast a wall of flame or a wall of fire which burns hotter over time. Once the meter is full, the flame will start consuming energy. Now this particular ability will be receiving a buff once the Helium does get released, just because of the fact that it takes up so much energy, and of course the only way for Ember to be effective is because you need to make sure that you have that meter maxed out, and also you need to make sure that you are hitting the entire room with a lot of fire, because that's what makes Ember effective. Because remember, we can strip the armor, we can also apply a second heat proc for every heat proc that does get applied. Moving on to her third ability called Fire Blast, Ember slams the ground, creating this wave of fire which allows you to only ignite a group of enemies but ragdoll them back, creating a lot of crowd control. Crowd control is very effective, especially when it comes to the steel pot, just because of the fact that it'll give you a bit of breathing room. Fire Blast also allows you to partially strip the enemy's armor. Now there's a bit of a tip when it comes to Immolation and of course Fire Blast. So once your Immolation meter is maxed out, you'll be able to go and strip the enemy's armor in one single instant. Therefore you'll be able to use a lot less energy, and therefore increasing your damage per second or your kills per minute. Remember, if you're in survival, kills per minute is everything. If you can keep it up consistently, then you'll be able to survive as long as you want. But in all honest case, who in their right mind does have all this time? Finally, moving on to a fourth ability called Inferno. You summon these flame comets coming from the sky, then they'll crash into your enemies, burning them into a crisp, and yes, the fire does spread. One thing I do want to say about this ability is it's very powerful. However, it is purely based on line of sight, meaning that whatever enemies you see, the comets will automatically affect them. So if you have enemies behind you but you're not looking at them directly, you won't be able to go and kill them, because remember, Inferno is purely based on line of sight. So do make sure that you do see a lot of the enemies when you do activate your Inferno. Now Inferno back in the day was not the way it was today. It actually used to be called World on Fire, and basically you'll be able to go and hit all the enemies without even looking at them. It's more of an AFK type of DPS. I know back in the day that was such a huge thing, but Digital Extremes is not too crazy about it, so now we do have Inferno. Now remember, Inferno is purely based on line of sight, so you have to make sure that you are looking at a group of enemies just for it to be effective. Now with this particular loadout, we are going to be using the Epitaph, which is a great primer. I know there's the Cedar and there's all these other ones out there, but for the time being, the Epitaph is a relatively powerful weapon. Now the passive is actually pretty good. Now usually when it comes to Warframe passives, I actually like to throw them away. I don't really like to pay attention to them too much, because 9 times out of 10 they are relatively useless, but not in Ember's case. So the passive is pretty good for every enemy that is set on fire or has an active heat proc on them. You'll gain a 5% extra power strength for every enemy that is on fire. So now I went to Simulacrum and I tested this out, and I was only able to spawn in 20 enemies at a time, which means you'll get yourself an additional 100% power strength. And then when it comes to Steel Path itself, you'll be able to go and deal more damage or gain more power strength, because remember, Steel Path will definitely be able to throw more than 20 enemies at a time, therefore giving you even more power strength than the amount that has been depicted in the Simulacrum. Don't forget about that. As for the build, as usual, we do not actually go and use Forma, because I am known for budget builds. However, we are going to be using some top spec mobs. So if you guys would like to go and have a much cheaper version or don't really have those versions, what you can do is simply, like for instance, Prime Continuity. If you don't have the Prime version, a regular one is just as effective. However, your energy economy won't be as good as mine when it comes to, innovation, not innovation, Immolation, that being her firewall, because remember it is a drain per second. So prime continuity and regular continuity will definitely be a good version or a good step if you don't have the prime one. But of course, please keep Archon Vitality because of its secondary ability. Archon Vitality will allow you to gain an additional heat proc once an initial heat proc has been effected, so basically doubling your current heat damage. Now, when it comes to focusing on, here we are pretty much focusing on everything given the current state of Warframe. It was quite difficult to make her relevant again, but remember, Ember is getting a buff. Now, as for the Arcanes department, when it comes to Energize and, Molt Augmented for more power strength, and Energize to make sure that energy economy does exist. I know I've been getting a lot of hate when it comes to, the Arcanes department, but let me tell you guys one thing. We've had so many opportunities to go and get ourselves Arcane Energized and Molt, and Molt Augmented. Really, you're not going to be spending any money on these Arcanes. You're mainly just going to be spending time, which, I guess that can be quite expensive because at the end of the day, we don't really get our time back. But, if you guys don't have these Arcanes, then I highly suggest you guys just, don't use the Arcanes at all. Maybe look for some other alternative because I don't know anything else you guys could go and use. But at the end of the day, this particular Arcanes are very, very, very viable because remember, you do keep your energy and of course, you do get even more power strength. But if you guys don't have Arcane Energized, then I recommend either don't use Arcanes at all or go and use something that can actually, suit your particular playstyle. But hey, not everyone's going to have the time. I've had all these Arcanes for years and years and years. It just boggles me knowing that people don't really have it. Given that, there's so many easy ways of gaining Arcanes, unlike back in the day where you had to, like, hope and pray that you'd get yourself Arcane Energized. Ladies and gentlemen, I make some pretty awesome Warframe content, so if you guys like to go from 0 to hero as fast as possible, go ahead and take a look at the rest of my videos. There'll be some links down in the description, and of course some of them will be suggested to you guys at the top right. So go ahead and take a look at them. If you guys like to support me or the channel any further, do remember to leave a like on this video. It always helps me out substantially. Spartan the subscribe button for more Warframe videos and streams. I'm Mac like a banana and split.